Welcome back to VMworld Live. I'm John Troyer. We're here at Copenhagen, VMworld 2010. This is our final segment. We're kind of wrapping up the conference. I see people filing in and out. They're taking away the coffee already. But I think that's a sign that it's about time for us to pack up and go back to San Francisco. Really pleased to have with me today Mike Laverick. He's here to talk about the TechTarget Best of VMworld 2010 Awards, along with Simon Gallagher, who's the best of show winner at the awards. So Mike is at rtfm-ed.co.uk and works with TechTarget as well. So Mike, talk a little bit about what TechTarget decided to do here in Copenhagen about the Best of VMworld Awards and the process and some of the winners.
Sure. I mean, I think the big thing that we really wanted to get across is that these awards were user awards. Because so often in these events, it's the vendors that take all the highlight and all the credit, and of course they're swarming around hoping to make sure that they get an award in some category. And what really attracted me to this idea that TechTarget had was that it was recognition of users, people using VMware products in the real world or even in their home lab. We were going to recognize them because you know and I know that I'm about the community just like you are. So I really liked the idea that we were going to recognize people from the community for the work they've done, because the vendors get the junk kits and then they get the toys, but the users are sometimes a bit overlooked in that process. So there was 6 categories. The category that Simon was in the home and remote office. We had about 80 submissions across all of the categories, and head and shoulders above all of them was Simon's work. To the point that when it came to when you're a judge, you think everybody's going to have their little baby and everybody's going to say, my baby should win. The judges were like, no, give it to Simon. It was like hands down. It wasn't a difficult decision to do in that respect.
Well, before we get to Simon, actually go over what some of the categories were. You don't have a list of the winners here in front of you.
I'm slightly hungover, so I have to try and remember the categories. It was home and remote office. We had private cloud. We had virtual desktop, a server consolidation category, and we also had a DR category as well. I think that's our load. Gotcha. And what's impressive about what Simon's achieved is that you've got like big companies that are backed by a budget and a team, and we were actually more impressed with what a single guy managed to achieve on his own without all that financial backing. And I think what Simon did is really showed that you can do an awful lot with a very little amount of resource. And it kind of took me back to the early days of when I got started with VMware, and you had to be very kind of creative in the technologies you use to try and build a lab environment to actually learn the thing. And that's where the community got started, with people like sort of, hey, I want to do this with VMware, how can I do it? And we were all like sort of sharing our experiences, right. So it kind of took me back to that route, I think.
Well, Simon, tell us about your project.
Okay, so I've always had my own kind of lab environment at home. My original background sort of NetWare and Windows back in the day. So probably for the last 10 years, I've always had at least 2 PCs hacked together, cobbled together, running various services and things because you have to do a lot. I work as a consultant, so I've always had to do a lot of work around certification, studies, testing out beta products, that kind of thing. So in the past, I've had lots of machines running hacked up versions of VMware Workstation with multiple machines. I kind of grew over the years, particularly when kind of ESX came around, and as Mike mentioned, you have to use what we call real hardware. You can no longer get away with something that you found in PC World. It now has to be a branded piece of equipment. So I kind of got to the point where I ended up with an ML570, big 8U or 6U server, a bunch of old ProLiant kit I'd found on eBay, which got very expensive because it all essentially sucked a lot of power. So I was trying to find a way of reducing it down as far as possible. So we kind of come across these HP ML115s. So small tower PC server device, and what I was trying to get at is I needed to build a what would be a kind of complicated enterprise vSphere environment. So multi-node cluster with some shared storage so that I can do, I can write scripts that touch multiple numbers of hosts. I can do vMotion, DRS, HA, and basically run through all those scenarios to try and help me when I was doing my VCP exam. So it is essentially a PC-grade server with a solid-state disk in it. The box only has a single socket, CPU socket, 4 cores, an AMD chip. And on that, it's got then 8 gigs of physical RAM. Okay, so that's all it has. It won't take any more than that. And so within that, I have so ESX installed on the raw box itself. I then have 8 ESXi virtual machines running on it. So there's an 8-node cluster. There's a Windows box, a virtual sensor.
So inside the ESX or ESXi on the raw?
So ESX Classic, although it will work with I as well, on the raw hardware.
And inside that, 8 virtual machines, each running
ESXi, which think they have 4 gigs of RAM 4 gigs of RAM each, so get a lot of oversubscription. Then inside that virtual 8-node cluster, I've had up to 60 virtual machines running. Okay, so this gets really complicated when you try actually and work out how the networking works, because I've also, to kind of make it representative of what you do in the real world, I've got separate VLAN networks for vMotion, iSCSI storage, because kind of the other pieces you need shared storage, which for a home lab has always been really difficult. So I've been using OpenFiler and recently done some work with Nick from EMC's Celera Uber device, like a software SAN, basically, all running on one box. I think the interesting bit for me is that actually it doesn't really go to a physical network, so it's on a single host. All of the connectivity is done by virtual switches, so it's actually all in RAM. So between that and the fact it's all running from an SSD, it actually makes it perform reasonably well.
Okay.
You should explain as well what it's called and why you called it that.
Okay, so I'm not really a Doctor Who fan particularly, but I quite like the idea of this in that, Doctor Who's kind of popular UK TV series that's gone around the world. So he has his telephone box, which is called the TARDIS, and the kind of strapline for the TARDIS has always been that it's a lot bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Okay, so it is a phone box, but you go in there and he has this massive suite of things. So I thought that was quite apt for this, in that there's essentially a data center running inside a single box. It's had the acronyms meant various things.
So it's a vTardis, isn't it? And what does TARDIS stand for you?
Well, I'd say it's changed a few times, and I forget what the current iteration of it is, but it was something like it was transportable. It was trolley attached at one point, so it was transportable, awfully revolutionary, redundant data center of invisible service.
So you had his own TARDIS.
Yes.
So Simon, this is really useful for home labs and training, testing out configurations. Is there a version of this, a son of vTardis that because this was kind of in the home office, small office, lab category of the award. So it's absolutely completely understand use for as a lab.
Yeah.
Are there implications for how would this be useful in in a remote office or business environment?
I think it's really restricted to training and development. Although interestingly, obviously the labs that they're providing here at VMworld are based around a very similar, in fact, the same concept.
And they've been doing that since Cannes of last year.
Yep.
So they were using ESX in a virtual machine running on an ESX to run the whole lab environment, and of course the teardown and build up is that much easier because you've virtualized the thing that normally does the virtualization. So if you want somebody to go in and change things after the lab is over, it might be snapshotted or they just revert the VM that in. So you guys are doing it, and you found a usage case for it in your own lab environment. So I'm thinking, ISVs who have to demonstrate products and things like that to customers. So they need a quick tear up and tear down.
I'd say I work as a consultant. I used to do a lot of Exchange clustering work, so I'd always had clusters on my laptop in workstation, and as I've moved on doing more VMware stuff, if you need to go into a customer and show them what HA and DRS can do and how it works, it's all there in a portable format. You've not got to rely on.
You could stick it in the boot of the car and take it round to a customer, power it on, have a cup of coffee with them, and then I've brought this entire thing. And one thing I used to do as a Citrix consultant, I used to carry around in the back of my car 2 1U pizza boxes, stick them into a power supply and a hub, and I'd use that to demonstrate the whole Citrix platform. But get this, when the customers saw this, they say, how the hell are you getting all these different instances out of 2 pizza boxes? And I'd say, well, it's this thing called VMware. And they were like, oh, don't show us Citrix, show us this VMware thing. And so as a consultant, it's a double hit because not only were they interested in my Citrix skills, but I was the very first guy to show them VMware, and to the point that they really weren't interested in what I was showing them in Citrix. They were interested in this crazy loon who managed to get 16 Windows instances out of two boxes. So
something maybe then the light bulb went on your head and thought there
well,
might be some future in this?
it was always part of my secret master plan, you see. But I'm really impressed with what Simon has done, and it's £500.
So yeah, £500. Unfortunately, those 115s have gone end of life now.
But you can find something equivalent.
They're on eBay, you know, yeah, and there are some around.
I had this joke with Simon before I came out here. I was thinking about his vTardis, and I was thinking, we really need to set about a small micro manufacturing base for this. Get somebody to press steelers these blue boxes, where we would just fit the bits that make up the vTardis. And then when somebody plugs it in, the little LED goes by with my IP address is this. And when you power it on, the Doctor Who theme would come on and a little blue light would go in. Because I reckon you could probably pre-package all of this stuff and then sell it to people in the virtualization space, ready cooked. So it already has ESX, Virtual Center, all the suites of the product, albeit with 60-day or 90-day licensing. So if almost like a proof of concept in a box for somebody who wants to do a VCP. And I was thinking, let's chuck in a subscription to MSDN, so they could then register the VMs that need activation, and then all that leaves is the VMware piece to license. So but I don't think this was one of my crazy 3 o'clock in the morning ideas of how I was going to dominate the world with vTardis, and together me and Simon will be able to do this thing. So a bit of a pipe dream, but why not? If it accelerated the adoption and use of VMware products, it would almost be like a kind of marketing thing for VMware to do it.
Well, right now, if people want to build a vTardis, are the blueprints on your website?
Yeah, so my
quickly going to be covered by IP and copyright.
Yeah, trademark. Yeah, so on my blog, there's Simon Seagrave and I have had sort of a joint post around home labs, and then this was kind of an extension of that. So there's a post on there around how to do the kind of original vTardis. I mean, bear in mind, I probably built the original iteration of this about 12 months ago. So. I've actually got another 2. There's this kind of son of vTardis.
So you owe us another write-up.
Yeah. So there's son of vTardis, and then there's vTardis the cloud, which is
going to do a cloud version.
But if people want to go, should they Google vTardis, or should they go
Google vTardis?
VMF.net, or where should they go?
VMF.net. It's on there again. Google vTardis, and
VINF.net. Well, great. We really need to wrap up. So, did you guys have a good show here in Copenhagen?
Yeah, such a good show. I need to go back to my hotel and sleep for a couple of hours.
It was a good show in many respects. Solutions Exchange was great. The keynote was great. The breakout sessions were great. This cool vTardis thing was here. Oh, you didn't have it here though with you.
I have it in my hotel.
Ah, okay. We don't have the prop here. Anyway, gentlemen, thanks for joining me here on the show. Have a great, safe journey back, and we'll call VMworld 2010 closed. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.